How do we build a agriculture sector that is flexible enough to allow communities in very northern regions or very isolated communities and even urban centers to produce more of their own food locally? The technology that's out today needs to be incorporated to provide people with the ability to produce some of the products they eat in order to have that independence necessary. It doesn't matter where you are. You should be able to grow something. You should be able to use technology to grow the items that Canadians need on a daily basis.
Hi, welcome back to our podcast, The Zero Hunger Project. I'm your host, Suman,
I'm Stacia.
and today we have another very important and one of my favorite guests, our Member of Parliament in Canada, Michael Coteau. Stacia, you want to say a little bit about him?
It's my pleasure to welcome Michael to the podcast. He's the Member of Parliament for Scarborough Woburn, representing the Liberal Party of Canada. He currently serves as chair of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food, where he helps lead national discussions on food security, sustainable agriculture, and innovation in Canada's food systems. Before entering federal politics, Michael served for a decade as a member of provincial parliament in Ontario, representing Don Valley East from 2011 to 2021. During that time, he held several cabinet roles, including Minister of Children and Youth Services, Minister of Community and Social Services, and Minister of Tourism, Culture, and Sport. He began his public service career as a Toronto District School Board trustee, advocating for youth opportunity, equity, and community development. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's great to join both of you.
Thanks, Michael. I think I've known you for a little bit now, and I always thought you to be somebody in public service who's really got a heart for the community, know about poverty reduction, food security, and has. Would you want to share a little bit about your experience in working on these issues?
Yeah, so I grew up in Flemington Park, which is located in Toronto. In the community itself, there were some economic challenges. So, that kind of those types of challenges in a community have always been part of my makeup, my DNA. I got involved at the school board level because of that, and I worked as a youth worker in Scarborough for years before I joined. Actually, I was in the not-for-profit sector. I ran a literacy organization as well before I became a member of provincial parliament in 2011 under the McGuinty government. So it's always been part of who, that's made me who I am. And one of the first real connections back to food and food security and just general nutrition was at the Toronto District School Board. I was the responsible for chairing a committee that looked at the entire food footprint at the school board. And what we actually ended up doing was making recommendations to the school board to eliminate fried foods. We made a percentage of the purchasing had to be of Ontario and Canadian origin. So we made some massive changes within the school board to increase nutrition, but also expand programs like the student nutrition program. And I sat as the chair a board member on the Toronto Foundation for Student Success, and that's where really some of the connection back to the challenges that people have in our city when it comes to food security and obtaining good nutritional food.
That's fantastic.
It
And
is fantastic.
currently, in your role as the chair of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food, what do you think are the biggest challenges currently Canada is facing, especially on the food security side of?
Well, food security is the concept of food security can mean so many things. From just access to food to building a sustainable, food chain, supply chain that is accessible to people and is distributed successfully across the country. So within our committee, we can explore things like precision farming, which is the most advanced technology, and how you increase yields, to What type of regulations play a role when it comes to food and safety, when it comes to, the Department of Health, how those, regulations that fit within there actually allow food to remain safe and accessible. So there's lots of things we can explore as a committee. Right now, we're actually studying red tape and regulations. So a great example is, there's a huge sector out there that wants to use drones when it comes to going out into the field and applying fertilizer, for example, or a pesticide. And the interesting thing about that is that I've heard from some folks, when you use drone technology, you can actually reduce pesticide usage by, we're talking, I've heard as high as like 98% because it becomes precision application. And the challenge is that sometimes the system moves too slow to keep up with the technology. So as Canadians, we need to rethink the way our government works, the way regulations work, so we can stay relative when it comes to agriculture, competitive, and continue to build off of a very successful agriculture sector that has really tremendously helped build this country from the beginning, and represents almost 8% of GDP of this country.
I think it's really fascinating as somebody who's not in these conversations normally to hear about the problems that you're trying to tackle and the solutions that you're going after, and to realize how unbelievably complex they are.
It
And they
is.
are very often problems inside of problems inside of problems. Like, yes, we have this fantastic tech that we can now use to precisely and strategically and intentionally deploy fertilizer, for example, or seeds or any number of things, but maybe the systems aren't keeping up with how fast the technology is developing. Like, of course, when you say that out loud, it's obviously a problem that, of course, would happen because tech evolves much faster than a lot of other things do.
Absolutely.
But you needed to say that to me in order for me to realize that is yet another problem that needs to be sort of folded into the conversation.
And if Canada wants to remain competitive and continue to produce the best quality and the best products, we need to make sure that we build a regulatory system that allows for change in a rapid sense, because the world is moving so quickly. And agriculture, some people may think that agriculture is this. You put a seed in the ground, it grows, and you get a tree or a fruit or a vegetable, and it's that simple. Well, I guess things have changed drastically, and we know that the technology today is so advanced. So, for example, when you have land and there's kind of hills, small hills, and the AI could now go and scan that using GPS to figure out, how much water supply should be used in certain areas because of the angles within land. You can figure out, from GPS, how to track your land and which products are going to be better this year versus last year when you're changing crop, not to deplete a certain nutrient. And so there's precision farming that's come forward, and there are some pretty cool companies that are out there making a huge difference with an end goal to supply the best possible food to Canadians, which includes enhancing food security.
Very
And
cool.
this is music to my ears because we have a partner organization, Youth from Newfoundland, came up with an AI tool with doing the exact same thing using drones for nitrogen deficit in the fields.
Amazing.
And
That's
they're trying to get
incredible.
that into market. So it's great to hear that these kind of stories that we are working as a country.
And Michael, what's your learning curve on all of this? I mean, are you doing these things by day and by night? You're up all night reading all of this stuff so that you can also keep up, because you have a lot of responsibility here, particularly as the chair.
The chair's main function is to run the meeting, to keep things in order. And remember, we have a these committees are made up of all different political parties. We've got the Conservatives, Bloc Québécois, Liberal. So we need to figure out a way to work together to provide the best advice possible through these committees back to government and back to the minister. The minister and, of course, the prime minister, at the end of the day, will make the decisions. But what we can do as a committee is look for ways to, remove the partisanship, come together, and actually provide the best advice. And it's amazing to sit in a room where some of the smartest people, uh, people who have so much influence and connection back into agriculture, coming to our committees, uh, making deputations, and us extracting that information and presenting it. We're doing a report now on spent fowl, which is just a very interesting topic because spent fowl is like the hen that lays eggs, and it's coming into the country as sometimes as just labeled as chicken. So we need to change regulations to identify what's the difference between a regular broiler chicken, I believe it's called, and a spent fowl. So it doesn't mix within the market without identification.
When you were a kid, did you ever think that you'd be spending your days trying to figure the difference between a broiler chicken and a spent fowl, Michael? I mean, it's
Well, you know what? I didn't, but I'll tell you this. When I was a kid, I was fascinated with seeds and with soil and growth. And I always thought to myself, how amazing is it to take a seed, one like let's say a chili pepper seed, put that into the ground, and it has the code within it to develop into a plant that produces more peppers. And you could essentially, from that one seed, produce thousands of seeds that within one or two generation can fill acres of land. That one seed has the potential to change the world around you, one little tiny seed. And to me, that fascinated me. It's like nature's 3D printer.
so
That's
cool.
fascinating.
Nature's rad.
And Michael, you talked about it earlier, but I know you have worked tremendously on the school food program, student nutrition, and very recently we had an amazing budget coming out of your government that is making school food program permanent and not just a 5-year program. What's next on that front?
Well, I think it's making sure that that school boards and community-based organizations have access to the resources. It takes a lot of help on the ground to make these nutrition programs successful. So it's making sure that the right partnerships are struck. That it's accessible across the country. We know that there's regions where it may be more difficult. Some provinces that are ahead of others. We have to take into account, rural communities, northern communities. There's a lot to work on, but we're going to get there. It's interesting when I moved a motion at the Toronto District School Board to expand the snack programs at our schools. This was years ago, probably 20 years ago. There were people who would call me and complain that their tax dollars shouldn't be paying for kids to eat. It was a very interesting experience for me because we just grew up where in the Caribbean culture that you have food people just eat, right? And we knew from the research we did back then, and I think the data holds true today, that 25% of kids that came into our schools were not having breakfast, and that was by choice, but also just because of circumstance. So we knew that that there were a lot of young people out there that weren't getting the nutritional necessary requirements to enable them to be the best possible students. And we talk a lot about today frustration and kids having challenges learning. Of course, food is not, the only reason for that. There's many reasons, obviously, but I always like to quote Bob Marley when he said, a hungry man is an angry man, and you can't study in school if your stomach's
And
growling.
also, who calls a politician to say, I don't want my tax dollars going to feed
I'm sure
children?
many.
I heard a politician yesterday, and I won't say any names, but he basically said that the government should have no role in feeding kids. It's overreaching their responsibilities, and they're becoming the mom and dads for children, which I completely disagree with. When it comes to G7 countries, I think we're the only one that did not have a
We were
national
the last
program.
one. We've
Yeah, we're the last one. And in addition to that, I worked in South Korea for 3 years as a ESL teacher, and they had a full nutrition program or lunch program at the schools. And I'll tell you, it brought a lot of, it just allowed people to reach their full potential. It was good nutritional food, allowed young people to ensure that they had the vitamins and minerals to learn. And I am 100% in agreement that these types of programs are good for kids. And at a national level, you can actually start to see improvements in results when it comes to learning in
It's
general.
good for the nation.
And one of the hallmarks of Canada is that we are a country that has a social safety net. I mean, where would you like your tax dollars to be spent, sir?
There are people out there that don't even want their tax dollars going to pay for schools, right? So it really it shows that, and listen, as a Canadian, you have the right to your own opinion. This is what being Canadian is all about. We always should be able to create platforms where people can actually have discussions on items like that. But it's just I disagree with it.
Now, I tell you, we had a guest, a minister from Finland in one of our podcast episodes, and he made this comment. He said, "We had school food program in the middle of a war, so others can do it too."
Wow.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it really is unbelievable. Suman and I have been talking about the types of things that we've been learning about how different countries are handling food security and food sovereignty and poverty and hunger and homelessness and all these things. And it's incredible, first of all, the countries that you wouldn't think would be the ones that are doing really making incredible strides are doing it. And it's really amazing what can be achieved even in spite of what else is going on. Right? Like a
Absolutely.
lot of these countries have a lot of political problems. They have, all kinds of reasons why they could just say, actually, we can't concentrate on that right now, and they're not. And
Yeah.
and it's really impressive, and it makes me wonder how a country like Canada can be the last G7 country to not have a national school program, when there are other countries that are suffering all kinds of
Absolutely.
really difficult challenges, and they've managed to get it figured out.
So now I'm going to shift the gear a little bit into global and international food security. And especially with your experience, and I know you probably won't be able to talk as a government, but just as somebody who's passionate about food security, what do you think a role Canada can play a little more with advancing global food security?
When I was at the provincial level, when I was a minister under the Wynne government, anytime we had foreign dignitaries come over, other ministers from other countries, what they asked about were two things: education and agriculture. They asked a lot about, how we achieved our education levels, and how are we able to produce a yield rate that was much higher than most developing countries and just other countries in general. So I think as Canadians, we can share our expertise when it comes to agriculture. We have a sector that is highly advanced and technologically driven. So there's a lot of best practices we can share when it comes to just agriculture as a whole. But as a government, and yes, I can't speak on behalf of government, but I'll tell you what makes me, lean the way I lean when it comes to my ideology is because I think Canada has a role to play when it comes to international development, and agriculture is a massive part of that. We should be, supporting countries that have challenges when it comes to food security by, issuing, grants or looking for ways to provide expertise. It will make the world a better place. It builds goodwill when it comes to the relationships we have with other countries. And I believe that Canada should be playing a leadership role because of the type of country we've built. It is a model for international countries to aspire to. We've built something great here. We're pretty unique. And I think many countries would like to reach the same level of expertise and output when it comes to agriculture as Canada.
I think
That's amazing.
yeah.
Now, this is a tough question because I myself toil with this, trying to figure this out, but you might have a perspective on this. In Canada, we know on an average, we do not have a lot of food within our country. and we do rely on imports quite a bit. And with currently the geopolitical situation, what do you think we can do as Canadians better to be more self-reliant, especially when it comes to food and agriculture?
So I think the first thing is to recognize that agriculture is one of the biggest contributors to building this country, and it is one of the economic pillars for our future. Uh, if we want to achieve a, a sovereignty level, which Canadians even more recently have said they want to aspire to, agriculture will play a massive role in that. As government, as MPs, as community members, we need to put agriculture at the forefront of our economic success story, to double down on it and make sure that we have the right investments going into agriculture, that farmers and agri-food producers have the right resources necessary to reach their potential. And there are some things in technology that are happening at such a rapid rate. We have to, as governments, look for ways to get out of the way, to reduce red tape, and to position the country for success by adopting the best technologies, while ensuring, at the end of the day, that Canadians, their food remains safe. That's an important thing, and it helps build our brand internationally for more export, knowing that we have high standards when it comes to our food. But I want to talk about one other piece that I think is important, and that's how do we build a agriculture sector that is that is flexible enough to allow communities in very northern regions or very isolated communities and even urban centers to produce more of their own food locally. Yes, we'll always have to rely on our farmers for our main crops. That is the base of everything we do. But I've been to communities in northern Ontario, like at James Bay, where they produce no food. The technology that's out today needs to be incorporated to provide people with the ability to produce some of the products they eat in order to have that independence necessary. In urban centers, we've talked about the gentleman I'm a big admirer of, who I've seen in the past, the guy from Los Angeles who is out there building urban farms in any space that is available. The gangster gardener, I think his name is, or these are the types of folks that are outliers that are making a difference. It doesn't matter where you are; you should be able to grow something. You may not be able to grow, wheat and barley and things like that, but you should be able to use technology to grow the items that that Canadians need on a daily basis.
Yeah, we talk a lot about food sovereignty, don't we? And also, how it's shifted to not just having people get food, but get good quality food that is actually nurturing and is nutritious
Hmm.
and is filling bellies, but also like helping bodies. And how that's been a real shift in the last little while in the conversation to not just about getting food, but getting good quality food that is culturally relative, that is sustainable, that and that must be a huge part of the conversation that you're having.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, even growing like microgreens, when you take like the mustard seed and you put it in a mason jar with a little bit of water and you drain it every day, like over 5, 6 days, you've got from a couple of scoops of seeds, you got a full jar of microgreens. And, that's the most simplest form of, growing your own food that, packs a nutritionally dense punch. But over to the extreme, when you go into the Leamington area, Kingsville area, just outside of Windsor, that is perhaps the largest greenhouse growing sector in North America, if not the world. Like, it's remarkable what's taking place there.
Had no idea.
Oh yeah, so our Canadian companies that grow greenhouses are the biggest. They're the biggest in America as well. These companies. I've gone into these places. You're talking about um, you know uh, vines of tomatoes that are 20 feet high that last a couple of years that produce product. They're growing papayas there. They're growing, they have experimental areas where they're growing different types of food, which is just remarkable. So they're not only bringing that expertise and shipping it out to countries outside of our like the economic development piece. They're looking at the next stage of experimental food. How do we start producing, things that we had to import from other countries, especially the tropical countries? How can we as Canadians grow that here in a efficient, safe way? So there's the companies that are out there are just remarkable, and these are billion-dollar companies.
That's amazing. We talk about different initiatives like vertical gardening, haven't we? And we've talked about, rooftop gardens. Even what you were mentioning with the mustard greens during the pandemic. I have an 8-year-old, and we did a lot of like regrowing spring onions in a jar, and replanting the top of a celery, and putting it in the window in the kitchen, and you can literally
See
see it
them.
grow
Yeah,
if you put it in a glass jar. There are things you can do in your own house
absolutely.
to grow food.
I have a lemon tree in my house, and I've received probably 10 lemons from it. And I have a papaya tree in my house that's growing. I don't know what I'm going to get from it, but it's growing. It's about 3 feet high, maybe at this point.
When you get the papaya, let me know.
If the papaya comes, I will let you know. We'll have a
There
podcast
you
and we'll
go.
share it.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Now, you've been a strong advocate for communities and just the grassroots community work. Now, what message do you think the communities need to have to advance their food security even further?
Well, you know, I think we need to explore new ways in which people and this may be a little bit outside of my this is outside of my role as the chair of the agriculture committee. This is my personal philosophy. We need to look for new ways to make food more localized, more accessible, and provide people with the best options to obtaining that. Like accessibility is an important thing, and we don't see a lot of changes in the current structure that distributes food. There is an old system in place, and I just think we need to explore maybe more innovative ways to get foods from producers to people. I don't know what that looks like, but
What's a for instance? What does that look like?
well, I've always thought that why aren't there more cooperatives for for basic foods, right? Like I'm not talking about like replacing a grocery store. I'm talking about like for very basic items. Why does everything always have to be you know at a level where it becomes sometimes it can be challenging for people. So I'm just saying, like, maybe farmers, we've seen, for example, farmers go direct into cities with, the farmer selling. And you see the farmers selling corn all the time in Toronto, right? Like, let's see, you see them everywhere. So it's there's innovative processes that can be out there where maybe there's more of a connection between the farmer and the actual individual. Maybe it's maybe there's more growing locally, and I've seen people, like, I follow some pretty cool people on YouTube. Don't ask me for their names. I don't know their names, but there are farmers that take even small pieces of land in our environment, in a North American northern environment, and produce so much crop during the year, or sorry, during the summer, that they're leveraging it over the course of the year. So, education, I've always talked about, how do we get kids in schools learning more about food production and making it something that they may aspire to go into. So we're building better technology, and we have future generations of young people getting into the business. I think if I was born today and I knew what I know now, I probably would decide to be a farmer and go out there and produce some pretty cool crops. To me, it's a pretty cool industry.
And also being able to convert your front lawn into a garden, for example,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
bringing back the whole notion of victory gardens, and like why Cabbage Town was named, because cabbages were the last things during the war that people would
We're
harvest
growing
out of
there.
out of their
I did not know that. I'm trying to build a garden that produces things like, so for example, 2 years ago I planted asparagus, and it comes back every year, right? So I'm trying to plant. I've got parsley and and
If you leave
thyme.
a pumpkin in your garden over the winter, it will self-seed.
See, I didn't know that. I wish I had the land to actually leverage that more because they spread so quickly. But I'm gonna put. I haven't put my garlic in yet, which is something I should have done 2 weeks ago. But I hear that this weekend it may be a little bit warm, so I'm going to put those garlics in. I've got good Ontario garlic. And things like that. I love putting in crops, especially the ones that I don't have to worry about, like garlic.
And things that are drought or frost resistant too. During the pandemic, my
Exactly.
brother had a whole garden and he grew corn and tomatoes and just in a little plot.
That's so cool.
That's cool.
It
That
was
is so cool.
incredible. Yeah.
But I say this, the corn guy that is on Markham Road and Kingston Road, I love that guy. I have to say that.
Shout out to the guy on
Yeah,
Markham Road.
I know that you're writing, and he's really cool.
Yeah, my the corn guy I go to is at Ellesmere and Brimley, and then there's another one near the
Which is
Costco at
hilarious because Ellesmere and Brimley is not the first place I would think of to go buy an ear of corn on the road. Like,
once my dad finds out that my dad's in his 80s, he can't drive. But once he finds out through his network that that corn guy's back, he just keeps. He's like, go pick up the corn for me. Get me 12. I'm gonna freeze them. He blanches them, freezes them, and it's his corn for. He loves that corn, and it's just so good.
It
it's
is,
so good.
and it says a lot about the culture as well
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
local
And I'd
foods.
much rather buy a corn from the guy on Ellesmere than I would to go to a big grocery conglomerate and buy their corn. I would. I think
Well,
that's
and
cool.
but this comes down to the food security question. You may go to a Walmart and it's 33 cents for a piece of corn, but you go to the guy, at Brimley and Ellesmere, and it's 12 pieces for $10. So that's the challenge, right? That's the challenge for people. Everyone would love to support, our local farmers. Sometimes, the farmer needs to be paid properly, and it's not like, the Walmart's completely different. Like they're buying at such bulk levels. It's, so that's sometimes a bit of a challenge. But, maybe I could end by saying this, that I always look at garlic. May sound like a strange story, but bear with me. I look at garlic. We import our garlic from China, from Spain, a little bit from California. That's where our garlic comes from in this country. Well, at least in Ontario, that I know of when I go to the grocery store. Garlic is one of the most resilient crops you can put in the ground. You put that in the ground with the right moisture level. You put it in there, and I'm not a farmer, so I don't want to pretend like I know all of the what levels of nitrogen and phosphorus, none of that stuff. But I know when I put garlic in the ground, I don't have to go back and water it. I just leave it. And in the spring, you get the what's the thing that curls that grows from it? The scape.
scape.
Yes.
You cut that. You can actually, you can cook the scape, and then June, July, you're producing garlic. Why isn't in a country like ours? And if you've ever had Ontario garlic or Quebec garlic,
Delicious.
It's
it
delicious.
is superior
Yeah.
to any garlic we're pulling in from any other country. And my point is this: why is it in a country like Canada we're importing all of this garlic from China and from other places when we have the capacity, in probably a 10 by 5 plot of land, you could produce enough garlic to last you and probably the family next door a whole year. Why is that happening? And I use garlic as a story of resilience. If Canadians want to build a resilient economy, garlic is like one of the best examples I could give, where it takes 10 minutes and you put it in the ground, you leave it alone, nothing's going to bother it. You come back, several months later, and you've got the best garlic you can ever eat.
I mean, it's hard to argue with that.
So that's, I think, the blueprint in a metaphorical kind of like,
Well, and not only that, but it's producing two different crops, right? If you consider garlic scape to be its own crop, you put this in the ground, it requires zero maintenance, and you get two for the price of one come spring.
Yeah, well, you get 2 for the price of 1, and that 1 clove becomes a bulb, which, 10 to 8 cloves. It's like nonstop
Okay,
reward.
so we need to start a garlic council or
There
something,
you go.
Michael.
Well, you know what? There's a gentleman who I used to be connected with, he runs the Garlic
Oh
Festival.
yes, I know
I
him.
don't know if you've heard of it down and it's amazing. You go down there, they've got everything garlic from, garlic, based desserts to garlic flavored beer. Like they've got everything garlic. And
During my chef days, I was connected to him.
they're amazing what they do, and there's a whole group of people out there pushing garlic, and to me, it just represents resilience if we really push forward on it as Canadians. We sh- we should not be buying our garlic from anywhere but our own country.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you so much for your time. We know that you're
Yeah.
incredibly busy. We really appreciate you taking the time. We're really impressed with the work that you're doing and the work that you have done
And your leadership
and your leadership
for
and your
years.
service to your community.
And likewise, the work that you're doing is incredible. And I haven't read your book yet, but I will be reading it. And I just want to say thank you for the work you're doing and the leadership you're providing.
Thanks, Michael. It's a pleasure. Take care.
Thanks very much.
Have a great day. Bye bye.
What did you think of that
What a
conversation?
good guy.
He's great.
Yeah.
I've known him from the time he was a Toronto District School Board trustee,
Mhm.
and I followed his journey quite a bit. And even in history today, unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of time to talk about his background and
Mhm.
his history from where he started and how
Mhm.
he came in. But it's certainly, I've heard a couple of other podcasts where he has spoken about that piece.
Mhm.
So if anybody is trying to find him on, please look him up on that.
Yeah,
Great story. Heart certainly in the right place,
absolutely.
and him having the role he's having in the
Mhm.
parliamentary, it's absolutely where he belongs.
He has such an important job
It
too. I
is.
mean, to hear just a little tiny bit of the complexity of what it is that they're trying to accomplish is really something. And again, it just brings further levels of awareness to the average person who doesn't realize behind the scenes all of the mechanisms that are in place to try and keep the engine of this country moving forward. I mean, it's really remarkable.
Absolutely. And so down to earth.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
He's so down to earth. But what really fascinates me with him, with this conversation, is not only his understanding of what needs to happen within Canada
Mhm.
On agriculture side of it,
Mhm.
but also globally and where Canada can play a role
Mhm.
in leading those conversations where
Mhm.
there is a void currently.
Mhm. I wonder if he has any political aspirations to move up the ladder.
I don't know, but I think from somebody who's really a supporter of food security, I
Yeah.
would love to see people in politics who has this passion
Yeah.
and the knowledge to
Yeah, and
do.
and really the motivation. He seems very, very motivated to do the work that he's doing. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Now I have a lot of respect
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah. That's
this
understandable.
man.
Mhm.
So thank you so much for tuning in. If you're not following, please do so. The Zero Hunger Project. Until next week.